Good evening and welcome to All for United WFC with me, Matt Crane. I'm joined tonight by John, by Gareth and by Anthony. How are we all doing?
Good, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good. So tonight's topic then, we're discussing fans at games, attendance, opportunities and also grassroots, sort of in terms of bringing through young children and children from sort of disadvantaged backgrounds. Before we get into the show then, the first thing on the agenda was the news today from the club about the game being played at Old Trafford. So that's the 27th of March. They've now moved it to Old Trafford, kicks off at 11:30 in the morning on the Saturday. And this was something they've kind of done it similar, haven't they, to Women's Football Weekend, where they've staggered games. There's all the championship games that we're sort of able to watch. So, I mean, for me, I tweeted before, I struggled to understand the logic.
We've been
couldn't work out why they do it.
We've lost him.
He's gone.
We'll try and carry on. Matt was just mentioning obviously the breaking news. I read it on my app literally about an hour ago, saying that for the first time ever, our women's team is going to be playing at Old Trafford. Carry on, Matt.
Sorry, I didn't even realise it went off. You all still seem normal on my screen. I was saying, obviously, for me, I was trying to understand sort of the logic behind the thing at Old Trafford other than commercial reasons. So I think for me, you know, it's great for the players that they get opportunity, but in terms of sort of anything else, it didn't.
I think Matt needs to go onto his computer, onto his phone instead of his computer.
Shall I jump in? I think there's two possible ways of looking at this. One of them I think is I think was my first thought of what's the point in doing this when none of us are going to be there to watch it.
Yeah.
And that was my first thought was, okay, this is kind of great, but if we're not there, what's the point? And then thinking about it a bit more, I think, you know, it's obviously not just for us, is it? The other way of looking at it is this is going to be great for the players to kind of get a run out at Old Trafford. The pitch is bigger than it is at LSV. So, you know, they're kind of playing in a more, even I think an empty Old Trafford is going to be quite a daunting environment. So it will be a great opportunity for them to go and get a run out in a massive stadium, iconic stadium as well. And then the next time we play there, we'll all be there. They'll be used to the size of the pitch. They'll be used to the occasion and the location and everything like that. And then, they'll just feel better prepared when we eventually get in there with them.
Yeah. Anthony, what are your thoughts on what Gareth just said as well? Because that's pretty much the two ways of looking at it, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I was pretty much like Gareth. First thought, I thought, shame we can't be there. But as Gareth was saying, bigger pitch. I'm not being funny. It's every girl's boy's dream to play at Old Trafford. I could only dream to play at Old Trafford, especially the players like Tooney and Zellum, who are Manc born and bred. They would have dreamed about playing at Old Trafford since a young age. I can understand why they've done it. Like they get used to it, and then when next year, hopefully they'll do it again, and then we can be there. Obviously, it was discussed last year, wasn't it? In case he didn't want because she didn't want like half an. I don't know what it was. It was she wanted enough people in the stadium and felt obviously the time wasn't right then. So. But no, it'll be a good experience for them, and I'm sure we'll have a big performance from them.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to actually obviously seeing it on TV, just to see them inside that stadium. It's going to be so different to the cameras at LSV as well. It's definitely going to be exciting to watch, of course. Matt, basically Gareth and Anthony's kind of put like two different things, two different ways of looking at it. One, why do it now? Because there's no fans in the stadium to kind of recoup anything that would happen anyway. But on the flip side to that, is the club just preparing for when we do eventually play at Old Trafford, when fans are in the stadium? I mean, have you got anything to add to that, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I put a tweet out earlier actually, sort of saying similar. I couldn't understand why they do it. Casey's been very vocal, as have fans, of sort of, we don't want it to happen until it's full. The only thing I can think of is, one, commercially it looks good on telly, and I believe Tottenham have done the same for the North London derby. I think, two, it's sort of like, it's one of them where, because there's no fans, you're not going to get sort of the, oh, well, they didn't fill it sort of comments, nobody watches it and all that. So I think for me, that's probably the only reason why it's been done. I can't see any other reason why. I mean, listen, I'm absolutely delighted for the girls, but from a fan's point of view, it's disappointing because we can't get in. And yeah, just made no sense, really.
Yeah, I've had a couple of people message me. Sorry, Anthony, just 2 seconds. I've had a couple of people message me, presuming that because it's at Old Trafford, we can now watch the game, and it's obviously we can go to the game. But unfortunately, that's not the case, is it? Sorry, Anthony, what was you going to say?
I was going to say, how many do you think would go to the game at Old Trafford? What attendance do you reckon we could get?
Me personally, based it on the Etihad, they managed to get 30,000 with, I think, little promotion really, or like it was promoted maybe like kind of like not last minute as such, but I think they could have possibly done a better job at that. So probably a minimum of 30 from those kind of guesses. What about you, Gareth?
Yeah, I reckon probably similar. Although the Etihad, I think it was publicised well by Man City. I think United publicised it poorly. But yeah, I think City publicised it well. City gave a lot of tickets as well to youth groups and schools and packed things in that way. So that may have skewed it a little bit. But I know that actually that was the record for a short while. But I think it was North London derby again. That beat that record. So yeah, I reckon we could look at kind of high 30s, push up towards 40,000 at Old Trafford if it was kind of announced early, publicised well, like men's international break kind of thing as well. So this weekend next year, probably, yeah, I reckon sort of 35, 40,000.
Matt, what are your thoughts on that? And also, does it depend on who we're against as well, maybe?
Yeah, I think a factor of everything for me. I think, again, something I mentioned earlier was, when we do eventually get it there, was one, the opposition has to be correct, because at the minute we've got West Ham, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's hardly, if that was fans, it's hardly inspiring, is it? The second thing, yeah, how you promote it. I think for me, the Etihad was a shambles, and I've said this on previous shows. It was kind of City sent fans to United, United sent them to City. There wasn't much sort of fanfare around the game. Wasn't much advertising. There was a lot of people after the game. I know, sort of read in comments and things. They said, "Oh, we didn't even know it was on. We didn't know it was at the Etihad. We would have turned up." And it's like, well, at the end of the day, it's both clubs' responsibility, not just City as hosts, but ourselves as well. And I think, listen, until we sell out LSV, it's not for me moving there. But I think if we do host games, I want to see a big team. I want to see a Chelsea or maybe the derby again back there. And that's got to be the way it's done first. Get the excitement there, get sort of fans from both teams there, and just kind of build from there. I think if we can fill the bottom tier of all the stands, then that'll be a start, similar to what we did at the Etihad, obviously, but a bigger stadium.
Yeah, I think the best way to do it for me would be to almost fix the opening round of fixtures to take place in that September international break. Fix the opening round of fixtures to be big games, so the North London derby, us against City or us against Liverpool, and City against Chelsea, and kind of fix those really big games to be that opening weekend. Set it men's international break in September while the weather's still nice, and yeah, promote it all summer and pack them out.
Yeah, definitely. I can see the Manchester derby being at Old Trafford. Definitely can see that.
Yeah.
I think we know as well. Oh, go on, John.
No, I was just going to say, I'm sure about this time last year, I read or heard, I don't know if it was confirmed or just a rumour, that the idea was we've got to have at least one, not just us, but I think several clubs, if not all clubs, would have at least one game a season at the men's ground, obviously mainly for promotion purposes. So it'll be interesting to see, one, has this game been planned for quite a while, but we just haven't been told about it because we don't need to know about it. And two, how come it's just us this season and not many other teams this season? Is it because we didn't have it last season, or just a few little things now that I'm having to think about it? Why us? Why now? Who's decided it? How long has it been decided for? Just a few questions there. I guess I'm just throwing it out there.
I mean, my first thought when I saw it was Lee must be at home for the rugby. Like, it must just be a convenient thing. And funnily enough, Lee are at home on that Saturday, but because the Super League at the moment is being played in bubbles, they're playing all their games at Headingley that weekend. So although Lee are at home that weekend, they're in Leeds. And then it kind of that's when it got me thinking about the size of the pitch and the occasion. First thought was, well, we must just have to move away from LSV because of the rugby.
At least we know, though, the FA are good at fixing things. So like you talked on in terms of fixing it, we've seen the games against City in the Cup fixed every year and the County Cup games. So I'm sure fixing a derby won't be an issue with the goodwill of the FA.
How does everyone feel about that, by the way? Because, like, me personally, part of me would like to see us lot go to Old Trafford, go together, because obviously, you know, I know that a lot of us support the men's team anyway, but we've never been to Old Trafford together. Well, I've never been with you guys to Old Trafford. It would be an experience, wouldn't it? Even though none of us actually probably want it permanently. Well, I do think it would be a nice occasion for all of us to go. But whether or not everything would get so diluted because 70,000 seater, and we probably wouldn't, get that much. So. Yeah, I mean, how does everyone feel about that if we all ended up at Old Trafford on the one occasion?
We'd be all right with Natalie there, wouldn't we? She'd be the voice of 50,000 pads.
Anthony's clearly forgotten the last time when him and myself were there at the Cardiff game.
Well,
down the stairs.
that wasn't a great game, was it?
Can't remember. The less we say on that, the better. But the last time we went, John, was to see our girls parade the trophy, and I think I was in the corner with Natalie, and she was, I think she was a bit further down from me on the same row. Anthony was a few rows down. He came rolling down the stairs, absolutely mullered at half time, and we lost the game, and that was about as much as we kind of remember. But it was one of them. We just lost to Cardiff, and then clapped the players, saw him after, and that was all we could remember. We was just all hammered because obviously we'd celebrated the league.
I'll tell you what was nice though, when they did come out, they had a brilliant reception, didn't they? And I'm sure a lot of those fans in that ground has probably never watched them before, but they all supported them, and that was nice to see, wasn't it? Because hopefully we was kind of hoping that some of those fans would have obviously come across to LSV, and maybe a few did, but obviously not a massive amount. But that was nice to see anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to move on then just briefly before we get into sort of our main topics. Casey said earlier today, LJ and Kirsty Smith are back for the Arsenal game. Just wanted to quickly get your thoughts on that. I think for me, I'd be surprised if either started. I think, we've got what we have. We've had players that have done okay in their absence. So I think for me, if maybe, LJ comes off the bench like we saw against Chelsea, especially when Arsenal tire, then that's something I'd probably look to do. But I don't know if you want to start with you, John, and then we'll just go around and sort of get thoughts on them two being back and getting more bodies back, especially once, because we've had Fuso injured as well.
Yeah. Starting with Kirsty Smith, I think as a guest, I'd probably say she's more likely to start, just because when she was fully fit before, she did play. She did have a good one of games. We haven't seen much of Maria as fullback. I think maybe she's played one game of fullback. Martha, obviously in and out. Obviously, it's a massive game. So I'd probably say that Kirsty's more likely to start, but I appreciate that this is the first game back. It's a massive game. So do you stick with what you know, which is obviously at the moment Martha, or maybe play Maria there? LJ, I still want to see Jess up front. So if Tooney's still fit, obviously she is, but if you get me personally, I would rather see Tooney up there, either on the wide right, or Hansen, or Press if Press is back. To me, those three at the moment, I'm happy to see those ahead of LJ, and LJ can just be the game changer like she was against Chelsea. But again, it's all what Casey's seen in training. How's LJ doing? Has she been ready for some time? And it's just a bit of a waiting game. And then maybe she's fully fit and she's raring to go. But no, I'm happy to see Jess up top, to be honest.
Yeah, Gareth?
Yeah, I think it's similar, really. I think if either of the two are going to start, it's more likely to be Kirsty. I think before she got injured, she was pretty much starting every game, doing well. It's her injury that stopped her from starting. When LJ was fit, she wasn't starting every game anyway. And I think against a team like Arsenal, she'll do better coming off the bench once their defence has run around a bit. Once their defence is a bit more tired, she can come off the bench and kind of just run at them, which is what LJ is best at doing. And I think if she's doing that in the 60th minute, that's going to be much more effective than if she starts doing it after about 10.
Anthony?
Yeah, pretty much what they've said. LJ, I can't see LJ starting. I think she's better when she comes on, like Gareth says, when the defence are tiring and that. With Kirsty Smith, I think it all depends on what Casey's seen in training. I think if Casey's happy with her fitness and that, I can see Kirsty Smith starting.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have said it a couple of years back, but I think she's a better option than Martha. And we like you said, we haven't seen much of Maria, which is, I don't know why. I'm sure we'll see more of her as time progresses. But no, I would go for Kirsty Smith.
Yeah, okay. Sort of brings us on then to the next topic, and I know we briefly touched on it with the Old Trafford debate then. LSV and attendances. Obviously, season 1, we sort of saw, I'd say, probably average about 2,000 roughly. WSL, obviously, this increased then, and I think the average before obviously everything got cut was 2,200. So, again, looking at that, which isn't bad compared to sort of other teams, it's fairly consistent as well. Going to look into and sort of discuss how do you think individually we can sort of fill LSV? How do we get fans coming back that may have either never watched a game or have watched one game or have seen it on telly? Sort of getting those people in stadiums is a challenge. And I know, John, obviously we talked about it briefly, didn't we, last night with Lee on our YouTube podcast. Again, the product, I think the product and the image, like we talked about, was good. But in terms of getting people in and getting people back to LSV to fill it out, so I'll come to you first, Anthony. Do you feel like this is sort of a club thing, a responsibility of fans? Is there any ideas you have or any way you'd like to see it done?
Well, it's a bit of both. It's club's responsibility as well as the fans. You can advertise it in like programs at Old Trafford. Lots of people buy programs, so they can see it there. You've also got word of mouth from fans, like, oh yeah, come to LSV, and stuff. And it's stuff like that. You've got to publish stuff, like advertise stuff. Otherwise, it will never improve. And then you won't see attendances improve. So, advertising, social media. United haven't always been the best. I'm sure you agree. And so it's a bit of both. They've got to do their part, and we've got to do our part.
Yeah. Gareth, is there anything sort of you want to add there or sort of talk about? I mean, there's a comment here, if I put that on screen, from John Neville.
Yeah, I think attendances, I don't know if they will surge when fans are back. I think what we need to do in order to get a big attendance is a couple of things. One of them is the product needs to be good. So we need to be winning games. First of all, that will get fans back and people interested in coming over. second one, I think the product of the WSL needs to be better. Refereeing, for example, is a big component of that. I don't think we'll sell out LSV until the WSL product is more complete. And I'm not talking about kind of stadiums and stuff like that, because clubs do what they need to do, and renting with non-league or lower league stadiums is fine. You know, Tranmere is a perfectly good enough stadium with an unfortunate pitch last year, for example. I think the third one is accessibility. I think that's the main one. Is, you know, if we're winning games, people can't just be like, "Oh, I'll just nip to LSV," because it's a bit more awkward to get there. I mean, it's great for me from Liverpool, just straight down the East Lancs, happy days. But if you're in Manchester, it's a bit more awkward to get there than it is to get to Old Trafford. So buses, I think, could be great if we really wanted to go all out and have a dedicated day where we tried to just open all 4 stands and pack it out. We need to have something from Manchester City Centre or Old Trafford into at least into Lee, if not to that bus stop at LSV.
John, I'm going to touch on that. I don't know if you were at the first ever game, the Reading game in the Conti Cup. Something Gareth mentioned there about buses. Now, the club did actually put on buses to the stadium from Old Trafford, which was absolutely fantastic. And then typical Man United were here, there isn't the money. And it's like, well, you've done it for one game. You've got great success. Fans have commented and given feedback and said how good it was, and then you've pulled it the week after. You still hear me, John? Sorry.
Yeah, we can, yeah. Go on, carry on, man.
So they pulled it, and the week after it was pulled. So obviously, you know, Gareth talked about there, that's one solution. So I don't know if you want to sort of pick up and add around that. I mean, like I say, I thought that was quite interesting, the fact that they would pull something successful and stop or prevent fans from maybe having easier sort of access to LSV and accessibility.
I think, yeah. For me, first and foremost, is we need to actually get the fans actually wanting to go to the game from Manchester first. I think, I thoroughly agree. I hear you guys talk about how awkward it can be from Manchester to LSV, especially if the men's team are playing on the same day as the women's team as well. I get all that, and I know a few people who don't drive, and I know it's awkward. But maybe the club at the time didn't see that it was as beneficial, because there wasn't. I'm not trying to think of a reason for it, because to me it doesn't make sense. But from my point of view, I'm thinking, is there enough fans in Manchester that would actually go? Now, I think maybe it would be like in the 3rd or 4th season, but maybe starting off, maybe there wasn't. I'm not agreeing with it at all. I'm trying to think of why that would be the case. For me, I think we just need more fans actually wanting to go to games. But touching on like the first point, as you asked Anthony and Gareth, for me, I think for that to happen, first and foremost, we need to talk about it more. So I think we, as a fan group, are probably the best on social media when it comes to keep on and on talking about our women's teams, and not a day has gone by where I haven't gone on Twitter and either tweeted something myself or read something that one of you guys has tweeted. And I've seen myself, when I joined Twitter about a year and a half ago, no one ever spoke about women's football or Man United women's team, apart from maybe 10 people who are all in the Barmy Army. Now it's everywhere. So people are talking about it, people are aware of it, which is great. And then what's happened is people are starting to ask, where can we see the games? So this is all during lockdown, of course. So obviously we directed them to the FA player, because that was probably the easiest way, where a lot of people on Twitter could see that. And now, because of that, people are actually getting interested in the game. The question is, will there be enough people that, as Gareth said, do they actually feel, the fans who have watched it, is it a good enough product to actually make that journey, whether it be from Birmingham, London, Manchester City Centre? You know, is it a good enough product for them to actually make that journey? For me, you know, I fell in love with the team early on in that first season, and I bought that season ticket in the second season. But that's because I'm more of a Man United fan than a women's football fan, and that's what we need to do. We need to target the Man United fans, and I think gradually we are getting there. The club does need to do a massive amount more, because I think the website is getting better. I think they are mentioning it more. There are more podcasts, but for me, you just need to put it out there. And like Anthony said, it's all about promotion and advertising. If you keep on putting Katie Zellam's face next to Paul Pogba's or Bruno's, it's going to help. Even just being on the app tonight, the women's team playing at Old Trafford is creating that talk. What we do on this channel and the Barmy Army channel and any other fan channel out there, we're creating that talking, and the more we talk about it, the more people will want to start tuning in and coming to join in. But there is so much to do, and I don't think it's going to be 12,000 overnight, but I do believe that at some point we will fill that stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on, Anthony.
It's also educating people's mindsets, isn't it? You get a lot of these people that go, "Oh, women shouldn't be playing football. Women can't play football." And if that's coming from the older people, then it can run through right down to a young age, can it? Do you get where I'm coming from?
No, absolutely. I think you're spot on.
And it is a shame. Yeah, go on, sorry.
No, go with it, John.
No, it's just basically what Anthony just said. It is, and you do see it on Twitter, and it's not just the old people. It's not just the old ones, because obviously the kids are just as bad. I think, I say the kids, that's probably wrong as well. I mean, like teenagers on Twitter, keyboard warriors who don't even care. Obviously, we've got to talk about Grassroots probably a bit later, and that's completely different, because they do care, and those are the ones we need to be. We need to have a look at who we're actually targeting. So if we're targeting the youngsters who are playing football, easy. Okay, let's target them. If we're tuning into Man United fans who are open-minded, who go to the under-23s, or at least keep an eye on scores or whatever, then let's go for them. But there is a huge chunk of the fan base that don't even care. And we can see that because the lack of YouTube out there. Look how many fan channels there are for the men's team. Look how many there are for the women's team. There's no need for it. But unfortunately, there's just not that demand at the moment, is there? Yeah,
no, I agree. I think mindset of possible future fans, or even possible fans now, not even just kids, I think is massive. And I fully get what Anthony was saying. I think you only have to still go on social media now, look at the BBC tweet something about any women's team, and the amount of comments under it is an absolute joke. They're negative. I think for me, again, it was something that, and I know I keep referencing back to last night's show, but Lee Birch spoke very well. He was sort of saying, the product is good enough, and it's one of them where you don't want to kind of ram it down people's throats, but you do want to change that perception. And I think unless, for me, I've always said, listen, I have no problem if people don't like it, but people, for me, are passing comment and sort of talking about it, and they've never watched a game. They'll probably seen a 20-second clip on YouTube where somebody's messed up a corner, and they've just gone, that's women's football. Well, I
think it's even that.
Yeah.
I think what people are doing
is
they're kind of seeing that headline, aren't they? That the USA women's international team got beaten by the Dallas under-15 boys, and they see that and they run with it. Well, they don't realize that it was all the context of it was an awful lot different to what the headline gave out, and I think that one was a training camp, and they were just getting minutes and doing a favour, I think, more for Dallas than for anything else. But you see that, and that particular story under any of those threads will be mentioned without fail. There will be a reference to that Dallas under-15s game, and it's literally just one point, one headline that people have seen without ever watching the women's game.
For me, we need to like I say, we need to target those right people. So there's going to be some people who are all for women's football and brilliant, no problem. You got the other end of the spectrum that doesn't care, who will never care. But then you got the people in the middle. Say that I was, like, say 2-3 years ago, I was in the middle because I was more open-minded. I didn't care what the gender was or anything. I just saw the Man United badge and wanted to watch a game. And as you said, Lee mentioned it last night, it could be an under-8 team if they're wearing the Man United badge, you're going to want them to win over another team. But we just need to focus our time, whether it be fans or whoever. We need to focus it on the people, because there will be thousands of fans out of the millions of fans that United have got worldwide that are open-minded. But you're never going to change the sexists out there, and I wouldn't even bother trying, because I'd block them right away, to be honest. I don't even try. I don't even get into an argument with them. But it's the ones who answer or reply to a comment. If Jess Sigsworth puts a comment out, people might not even know who Jess is that much, but they might click like. It's those people who are at least interested. Those are the ones that we need to target. There's some people that's not even worth. It's never going to happen, is it?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, like I said, I've no problem if people have an opinion, but it's when they start. It's when you get the comments, like you say, John, and they've never watched a game. And like I say, they'll be pulling up clips, and like I was touching on sort of earlier, you can easily pull up clips of men's, cock ups. So it's like, it's no different. And I think for me, like I said, at the end of the day, football is football, whether it's men's, whether it's women's. And, I'm going to click this here by Vix, and she says, support anyone in a shirt. And that's spot on.
Yeah,
whether
definitely.
It's men's, whether it's women's, whether it's development, whether it's, anything really, that these people should be supported. And like I said, it's not for everybody, and that's fine. But it's the fact that when you come on and you're like, stuff like this, there we go. As it said there, you get these comments, and I just think for me, until you actually watch a game, you're not really in a position to comment. And it's one of them, like Anthony said, it's changing that perception. I think if that perception does change, and they can target open-minded people, or even just people willing to watch a game. And if you watch a game and you don't like it, that's fine. But I think, if we change the perception and, keep promoting games, keep it sort of exposed, keep the kickoff times decent, work in the community as well. I think getting out in the community can be massive. It's something I did at Wigan Athletic. We'd get out and we'd even give away free tickets to kids and say, come and watch this. And then, some of them turn into permanent customers with season tickets. And it's just great. And it's good as well, because obviously when we gave tickets out, it was free. So it's not like, we were sort of picking a specific target group. It was, right, anybody and anybody can go. Doesn't matter if you can't afford it. Here's a ticket, in you go. And, that might be something that we may need to do. I'm not saying give away hundreds of free tickets, obviously, because that incurs, costs, and this is men's versus women's. But for me, again, it's all about that mindset, and especially at a young age, targeting. I mean, I know Anthony, your two lads go to games, don't they? And absolutely love it. And I know you talked about, didn't you, posted the Mary Oaks video when you're having a kickabout, and obviously, she liked it. And I think, if that was me and I was, a young lad, and, one of my heroes had commented on something I've done having a kickabout, you'd be absolutely buzzing, wouldn't you? And I know your lads at games as well.
Yeah, he was really happy.
So excited to see the players. And for me, again, here, how many role models the girls have. And that's something I want to touch on as well in terms of grassroots and accessibility. Going to move on anyway, because I think we've pretty much covered that and sort of all given and spoke well about, the way to go. So obviously I sent you all a video. I don't know if other people have seen it, viewers watching, Football Focus on Saturday. Alex Scott was on, and they'd done a piece with accessibility at grassroots level. And they talked about sort of, that era under Mark Sampson. They talked about lack of opportunities in grassroots level for girls to get involved in football, lack of role models as well, things like that, lack of opportunities. So wanted to sort of obviously just touch on that video, get your thoughts on that first, and then obviously we'll get into it a bit more. I've got some facts and things. So start with yourself, Anthony, sort of that video. What did you take from that? What was the main sort of thing that maybe disappointed you in terms of accessibility, especially when it talked about sort of people in, the BAME community and people in sort of disadvantaged areas?
Yeah, she made a very good point. It partly to do with like places like shutting down and stuff. Like we used to have areas down here that were there to play football, and it's sort of funding and stuff, isn't it? There needs to be more funding, more help putting on transport for people that maybe can't get somewhere, maybe like charity services or something. Right? I know that obviously costs money, but stuff like that would be a start. I didn't realise how many young girls teams there really are. There isn't many, is there? Like, I saw a different video, just briefly, a Katie Zellum clip, and obviously when she was playing football at the age of 6, it was boys teams, and I'm not sure from when she was that age to now how much it's really changed.
I think for me, if I put this out there and then I'll sort of link this in with you, John. I read that since the World Cup in 2019, and bearing in mind sort of Grassroots has been quite hit, obviously, with everything that's going on, has been very stop-start. Says there was 605 new girls teams registered. That was within England alone, so not even the UK. Only 260 of them were able to find facilities to train and play. So, I mean, there was no sort of indication on this article from the FA where those other kind of 400 teams ended up. I mean, did they manage to find somewhere, or did they, maybe sack it off? I mean, sort of, your thoughts on that, or sort of how we can maybe look at that, because obviously Anthony touched on their facilities.
Yeah, look, it's disappointing, isn't it? Because anybody who wants to play football, whether it be boy or a girl, you should have that opportunity to play. And obviously, it is a lot more harder if there's no teams to actually get into. On that clip that you sent, it was worrying, the fact that you need money to even get that head start. Not even a head start, just a level playing field. It's if you come from a background that really didn't have that much money, then it's a lot more awkward for you. And I think I think it was mentioned that in London city centre it was a lot harder, whereas I was probably referring to the more other areas that are a bit more posher from a well-off family could find it easier to commute to it, send the child to a different area to play football and whatever. It's just really awkward, and it's such a shame. But what options are there actually out there? That's the problem. It's like a bit like Anthony said, if there's nothing there to actually help or fund, then at the moment it's almost like you're flogging a dead horse, because what can be done, and there needs to be something set up where if girls do want to play football, and if a team has been made or created, or a league or a mini league or whatever, then it needs to be put on, doesn't it? Because it's never ever going to get any better. How to actually do that? It's obviously the men's working with the women's again, isn't it? It's not. It shouldn't be divided. If whatever you do for the boys, you should be doing for the girls. But it's just getting that started.
Yeah, Gareth, I'm going to come to you, because obviously you work in education like me. Obviously you're sort of higher end age group. But what do you think in terms of facilities? I mean, for me, it seems like, obviously, we talked about there was potentially 400. Well, there is 400 teams with nowhere to play, and we don't know what's happened. Do you think sort of pitches and lack of facilities is an issue, or do you just think that maybe perhaps giving boys teams sort of priority, and kind of saying to girls teams, well, we've only got, let's say, 9 till 10 p.m. training slot, and then they're like, no, forget it, and just kind of sacking it off?
I think with that, I mean, I looked about this time last year to get into coaching, and specifically coaching girls as well. Found a team that were starting to set up more and more age groups of girls. So I was going to take on the under 8s and be with them. Started doing a doctorate, basically. So had to go, and it was that. But I think, I guess it's difficult. When I was looking for a team to coach, there wasn't a great deal of teams around that kind of were looking for anything. So I think what needs to happen is, Jesus Christ, what just fell off there? Something's literally fallen off the shelf. No idea what it was. But I think what needs to happen is those kind of more established boys clubs with a lot of space, and it's not just football teams. Usually, I think you find the bigger clubs it's like a football and tennis club or a football and cricket club that have the space that's shared between two sports of different seasons. And I think what them teams need to do is start developing their women's game as well. And I think those teams are going to have more members and therefore more money, more space in order to do that. I think what we see is because there are so many boys teams, because I think the demand is greater for them. You'll often see a team that just has like maybe 3 or 4 age groups, and that's it. So they don't need as much space, and then start maybe kind of doubling that to bring in girls is going to cost a lot of money. So I think those clubs that are generally bigger, that go straight through from under 5s right the way up to adult, it's those clubs that need to start doing a bit more. But just on that, I saw this a few days ago. I want to sort of touch on, it is a little bit ironic that 4 white guys are talking about diversity in women's football. And I live literally just down the road from where Nikita Paris grew up. And she put this on her Instagram at the weekend. Said, growing up in an inner city community, I know how easy it can be to feel trapped within a cycle or fall through the cracks of a broken system. A system built to make people of my economical class feel undervalued and unwanted. Coming from an area that many outsiders may describe as deprived, I see an abundance of unearthed talents which never really reach their full potential due to a lack of opportunity, support, or resources. Those who do never forget where they came from, or the hard work and commitment of those who believe in the vision have helped them to break down the barriers. That's the person I endeavour to become for the next generation, someone who uses their platform and voice to remove obstacles. And I think that's what needs to happen. You need players like Keats who have come from really working class communities. Like she's from Toxteth, which people will know for the riots. Essentially, people will know that Toxteth is a pretty working class area. But if you walk literally down the street 5 miles away from me, there is a massive painting of her on the wall of the community centre. So I think it needs people like Paris and players from the BAME community to kind of get involved in this conversation. It's good that Alex Scott is getting involved in these conversations. It's good that Rachel Yankee is kind of getting in on it as well. Obviously, Keats tweeting that. That's what needs to happen, and these are the people that need to be in the discussions, rather than kind of the talking heads at the FA. People that have lived it and come through it and been a success of the broken system are the people that can talk most frankly about it and the challenges that they face coming through it. I don't know what Keats went through to get to where she is now. But she does, and she's going to be a really good person to talk to about getting people from the kind of more working class backgrounds to come through. And I think that's the problem more than anything is that at the moment these opportunities aren't there, and we need to make more of them available.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to sort of put this comment on there. Needs proper infrastructure, and the FA needs to help sort of to get it in that place. I think what shocked me the most was that Baroness Sue Campbell, her words were, it's not inclusive enough and it's not diverse enough, and that was for girls and also the BAME community, which shocked me. I was staggered that she's kind of admitted that and done nothing about it for me. And then they had on Football Focus interview Anita Asante, and she basically said sort of for her growing up, there was no role models, there was a lack of leadership and representation from females, a lack of organisation and a lack of management. And this was, like I say, in girls and women's football and in sort of, different ethnic groups and different communities and sort of children from different backgrounds and different areas. Now, I think for me, getting something in place in terms of infrastructure would be a start. I mean, like you said, Gareth, there's not many role models. There still isn't now. I mean, it's better than what it was, say, 10 years ago. But I mean, Ante, I'm going to read something I mentioned to you when you sort of spoke about girls' teams. Now, girls' football, the teams where it's competitive and in leagues only starts at under 8s. Now, if you're male, you can find a team playing a league from age 5. So for me, it's like 3 years later than what a boys' team should be. So do you obviously think that obviously contributes to sort of this topic, what we've talked about? Because by the time children are 8, they may have had another passion, they may have had another hobby, they may have no interest in sport whatsoever due to, a lack of local team.
Talking to me, yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, definitely. At a young age, you grow out of stuff quick. So if there isn't that access to a football team, and that you might be like, mummy, daddy, I want to go and play for a football team. You're like 4 or 5, and you're being told, oh, you can't because there is no teams in your age group until you get to a certain age. And as you know, kids they grow out of things very quickly. Something like, I'm going totally off topic now. Something silly like at a young age they'll like Peppa Pig, then it will go to Paw Patrol, and then after that you get your bigger stuff. So like Tyler, obviously my son Tyler, and me, he was always going to get into football, and I never thought I'd say it, but sometimes I have to tell him to be quiet. I thought I was bad. I'm like, I'll give it a rest. But no, it's great that he's like that. But sometimes you're like, But no, like you said, it needs. I think they need to. You need an equal playing field, don't you? It goes back to opportunities again. Why can't they have teams from the age of 5? Is it that there's not enough interest?
I mean, for me, I couldn't obviously answer that personally, but yeah, I mean, like you say, for me, I don't see why they can't. I mean, listen, there is things, if you are 5, the more like the skill schools. So they are teaching you things, and there's nothing, nothing bad about them. But it's the fact that if you are a young girl and you want to become involved competitively, there's nothing there. You're turning up to soccer camps, which, you're learning the game, but then you're not taking it anywhere. John, I want to sort of link you in with what we've discussed with Anthony. And also something as well, again, that was mentioned by sort of Asante, and I know at the time, Ennio Luco mentioned at the time of sort of the incident with Samson. A lot of players were leaving the game due to sort of those views and the lack of opportunities. Now, the dropout at age 16 was literally, it drops by about 50% in terms of participation. Do you think maybe, obviously, I mean, listen, the comments by Samson didn't help, we all know that, but do you think that if, there is things like this, I mean, they talked about on the show, girls thought, what was the point because of the lack of opportunities and the lack of sort of pathways? Do you think if this improves, and let's say we do start up under 5s and we do, improve access, and, we've seen comments on screen about costs, do you think that could help potentially if this happens? So let's say the FA said, right, we're going to, from next year, chuck 30 million at grassroots football. We're going to have, Rachel Yankee coaching. We're going to put on, things in half term with Hope Powell, for example. Do you think that would then maybe help in terms of the sort of, diverse populations and children that may not be at an advantage where, say, a well-off family could be?
I think obviously if you're throwing money at it and it's done in the right way, then absolutely it's going to help. I think we've all touched on role models. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think if someone is there who has been involved in the game, who speaks highly, who has been through something and can set something up, that's what you need. You need the money, and you need the right people there. So I definitely think that will help. As for that amount of people, players dropping out at that age, it is really disappointing, because I think we touched on it last night, didn't we, with Lee, about like players yo-yoing and just not being able to, and that's obviously it's a higher level. But if you're at the top level and they're yo-yoing, then imagine what it's like lower down. Just touching on a few things that you guys have already said, I just wanted to add a little bit to it, which kind of links in. Gareth mentioned like the demand for it. I think it's interesting that obviously with the boys teams, there's probably more demand for those because there's more men's teams to go into at the next level, and it goes up. But what about the demand to actually want to be in a boys team? Surely on the girls equivalent, there might not be the demand to actually recruit these girls at a young age, but there is the demand there for girls wanting to play football. So you got to look at it from that angle as well. I just think that maybe there is something going on, because obviously I'm not clued up at all regarding what is actually going on to build this up. But for me, you've got to at least kind of mirror the boys and the men's side to at least get it going. And at the moment, obviously, we're not there, are we?
Can I just jump in on what Vix just said in the comment, the one you put on screen? That's kind of spot on. I used to work with a WSL footballer before, it was while it was WSL, before it was Championship, who played professionally, or played, and was given an option when Everton went pro, and didn't take it because they'd earn more doing a different job. So I think now we're starting to see more money go into it. That will start to change. I think the salaries, particularly if you get sponsorship involved, will start to kind of weigh more in their favour. But yeah, they're still just kind of pretty regular salaries, aren't they? And if you're going in and who is it in the United team that's done a law degree or whatever? There's going to be options there, isn't there, where you would earn more money. I know Amy T used to be a teacher, didn't she? And made the decision to play professionally, and probably now will be earning more. But when she made that decision, probably would have been either less or pretty much bang on what she was earning as a primary school teacher. So that is a problem. And I think it is one that needs to be addressed and is starting to move in the right direction.
That's a good point, because obviously I don't know. Yeah, sorry, I just want to say that obviously I don't know what the players earn, but as Gareth just said, I just wanted to mention that point again. So basically, unless if you're going to make it to the big time, then you're not going to make any money off it. So it's very hard for the players to find that balance, isn't it? Because no wonder they can lose heart if, as a 16-year-old, if you know that you're not going to make the WSL, then they must feel like really disappointed that they want to play, but they still need another job alongside that.
I was just going to add, John, obviously that article I sent you the other day from last year with Claire Rafferty, and I can't remember the player now, she spoke to a player, and this was before the WSL turned pro, and this player, I think, was a doctor in her spare career. I know Gareth talked about Amy T being a teacher. She was a doctor, and she earned $60,000 a year, and she was saying, she gave that up for a year to play football. And then I think there was something that happened with her football club, ended up getting relegated. And it was one of them where she had to kind of make a choice because she couldn't afford to sort of, go semi-pro and still juggle her career. And I think, like you say, the wages are better now. I believe WSL averages sort of $20,000 a year, which, I mean, listen, it's not great, but it's a lot better than what it was. And I think things like that in terms of like resources and finance, and I talked about yesterday how at Man United, people that are in players' houses, they get allowances for food and they get allowances for the sort of the car, the petrol and travel. I think just little things like that, but we do need to see that filtered down the leagues, and it's difficult, like we talked about yesterday again with Lee, sort of the finance side and the money, because like he said, a lot of the times players are putting their hand in their own pocket, whether that's for boots, whether that's for paying subscriptions to play, which covers them sort of medically. But I think overall, there's so many things before it improves, all aimed at, increasing participation. Conscious of time, so I'll just wrap up with one final point, and I'll come to you first, Anthony. Sue Campbell talked about the now bringing in scholarships for helping these young girls. This does involve sort of access to travel so whereby it'll either be reduced or there will be an option where they'll be picked up to, get to training. Do you think that initiative could potentially solve this, or do you think there's still more things? I mean, further up, if I go and find the comment here, talking about, access outside of school and expense. And then there was one as well, I think also from Vix again. She talked about the cost of kit and things like that. So basically my question is, do you think that this scholarship and these things such as picking up children, taking them to training and matches will be enough? Or do you still think that it's going to require more in order to keep people in the game?
It's a start for now. But like you said, the cost of the kit doesn't pay for itself, does it? If you're in a big family, like you've had, like you got 7 brothers and a couple of sisters or something, it does happen. There are families like that. Then they might not be in the position where they can afford to buy football boots here, and especially at a young age, your feet keep growing. So it's not like when you get to adult and you can keep your boots until they wear out. You have to keep changing that all the time, and so. But it's definitely a start. It's good that they're doing the scholarship thing. It's also going off it medical stuff as well. You're on about the money with people having to choose between career. If they have like a bad injury, do they get any help? Or is it a bit like where I go to work? If I break my leg playing football, and then obviously I have to be on sick pay and have all that time off for like physio and all that. So what do they do? Do you know what they do? Or
I mean, yeah, it varies. Again, this is something I've had discussions with sort of, semi-pro coaches and things like that. I think some clubs, obviously, like I said, they do have some basic medical insurance, but that only covers, like say, the 2 weeks sick pay. There's a lot of players and clubs that will crowdfund it, just giving pages, things like that. Something I've spoken sort of not against, but saying in the sense that it shouldn't happen. Like that's not fair for me on that player. And I think as well, what people don't realise is because tier 3 downwards, a lot do rely on, a job to go alongside football, is that anything that they do, let's say they have to go physio or they have to go private, again, it's time off work and it's loss of income. I think, again, for me, that's another issue where in the fact that, it's disheartening, isn't it, as a player, if you're injured and you don't get the correct physio to come back, it could potentially ruin your career.
That's not even tier 3 and down, is it? That's the championship. Like half the championship is still working.
Yeah, true.
You could be playing Liverpool midweek and have to take a day off work. If you play for London Bees and you're playing Liverpool midweek away, you've got to take a day off work to travel. So yeah, the fact that the second tier of football is still part-time is pretty stark. But just to wrap up on the cost thing, I think it is a problem, but it's a problem for any child playing any sport, and football is one of the cheaper sports to play. The output is a pair of football boots. If you were playing cricket, for example, and I know girls' cricket in Liverpool is on the up at the moment, they're really pushing it, but there you've got to pay out for a lot more. So yeah, although it is a problem, I don't think that just paying for travel and a pair of boots is going to do enough, because if that was the only problem, then we would generally see the gap would be a lot closer to boys, whereas it's such a massive difference in terms of the amount that are coming through. I think there's got to be more there than just it's expensive.
John, I'm going to come to you sort of a final question, then we'll wrap it up. Obviously, same sort of theme again, and this initiative that the FA are pushing. Do you think then this, in terms of, like I say, travel, do you think this would help? Because obviously Anthony mentioned big families, and what I'm sort of thinking about now is that, you know, there's only mum and dad, and if they've got 3 children and they all want to be involved, it's kind of like they're relying on somebody else or something else to then get them to these places. You know, and again, sort of push, you know, this sort of commitment to sport at a young age. I think it's a good age to get children into sport. Do you think as well, maybe schools, I mean, that was something else in the comments, schools can have a role to play in terms of increasing participation?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because I think it was mentioned on the comments earlier about parents, and that put that idea into my head as well, because obviously they have got more money, haven't they, and they can kind of link it in with their own PE, or obviously you guys both know because you're kind of linked with that kind of stuff as well. Yeah, I definitely think the stuff the schools do, and I think I was quite fortunate because the school that I was at was a college of sport. Hello, Ben. Yeah, I definitely think that there is. But then again, is it going to be just the top end schools and not everybody can go to? There's so many schools out there, but not every school is going to be able to commit to doing that, are they? So again, are we just going to not discriminate as such, but there's going to be so many kids that's going to miss out again because they're not in one of these schools that can do that? I'd love it if every school could kind of do something that's equal, that, you know, that they could all do it. But unfortunately, I don't think that's the case, is it? So potentially, I do think schools have a massive part to play. But again, how do you kind of get it all on a level playing field? It's going to be very tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of final comment there then. So, you know, you have to have mandatory kit for PE. You had to have football boots for hockey. You know, again, I think from my point of view, like you said, John, you know, we're working in a primary school. There's a lot where, like you say, it's sometimes I feel like PE's kind of, obviously it's part of the curriculum for me and it's important, whereas a lot of schools, some of them dismiss it, and there's not the commitment from staff, especially extracurricular, to be putting on things, and not just football, you know, I think in general, which is a massive shame, but you only have to look. I've worked in various primary schools over the years, and the amount that you say, you know, have you got a girls' football team? They'll be like, no. Right, okay. Have you got a girls' rugby team? No. Have you got a girls' cricket team? No. And they've probably got maybe 1 or 2 sports teams for the girls, but yet you ask them about the boys, and there's probably a good 10 different sports they can roll out. And I think for me, until sort of, I mean, we talked about attitudes and perceptions, until sort of things are done for me at an early age to get kids involved, to break down these barriers, because let's be honest, you know, the barriers for me as well as the funding are the 2 main things, then you're not going to see a change. Just before we wrap it, is there any final thoughts from anybody before we go?
I think just having these conversations always make me think that how far away that we actually are. And you know, we talk about money, we talk about everything, don't we? And it always just makes me think, you know, we talk about the wage, like, you know, footballers' wages. By the time that improves, you know, the cost of living will go up, other careers' wages will also go up. And it always seems that they're like 1 step behind. That's just the way it comes across, obviously, speaking to you guys and seeing the things that you send me, Matt, you know, little clips here and there. You know, it just makes me think that we are some way off the pace, and we do need a massive injection of something just to catch us up a little bit. We're always like 1 step behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that comment there, I love that. That sums it up. There's more to life than the PlayStation. I think that for me is the biggest thing, because you ask it like, I know I went back to school last week and I said, oh, you know, what did we get up to in spare time? And not one person said, you know, I was out, you know, kicking football. About it was all PlayStation, telly, Xbox, which again isn't a massive help. Listen, we've come to sort of the end of time now, the end of the show. Quickly, obviously, we've got sort of socials on screen. You can all follow us there. That's all. Everybody's Twitter names. Interact, you know, discuss football, discuss United. Next show is Thursday, and that is a development team special. So it's kind of, you know, following on from tonight's topic, talking about our development team. We'll also cover the players who came back to us in season 1 that have come through our academy. So, you know, the likes of Ella Toon, Emily Ramsey, Katie Zellen, Millie Turner, and so on. And that is a short show, isn't it, John, with you myself and Natalie. We're just doing that for 45 minutes before the men's game because obviously we're mindful of keeping people from that. And then obviously Saturday we've got a double, haven't we? We've got your match reaction and we've got myself and Ben as well with the Saturday Night Live. So, tune in, keep an eye on All for United WFC. Schedule will go up, and again we've got a lot of guests coming up, lots of different topics for you throughout the week. So thank you to everybody for tuning in and for jumping in the comments as well, and we'll hopefully see you all Thursday. Cheers, guys.